I'm Elliot Adams. I am with Veterans for Peace. Veterans for Peace is, as our name implies, a bunch of us who served in the U.S. Armed Forces, did our duty, and now see a commitment to a greater role to world peace. We're a growing organization of people who are trying to do this much more important role. You know, we fought in uniform and we thought we were fighting for peace. We didn't understand. Now we are fighting for peace. Now we are in that struggle to stop our country from these wars of empire, these wars that are for enriching a very few, and that we, the people, pay for with the flesh of our children and the riches of our, under crushing debt, being caused crushing debt because of it. You know, it's simple. When we had Vietnam, I went down there, I volunteered for the Army, I volunteered to be a paratrooper, I volunteered to go to Vietnam. I served as a paratrooper in the infantry in Vietnam, Japan, Korea, Alaska. I'm a slow learner. From that process, from being in combat, I began to understand. The first thing I saw coming out of Vietnam, I was still very confused, but it was clear to me that there was no way this process could give birth to peace. When you're walking into somebody's community, burning their hooches, maybe raping their women, killing the men, stealing whatever the hell you wanted, just because you're a bunch of kids. You're going down the road and there's a water buffalo, you shoot it just because you can. And that water buffalo was a huge piece of industrial equipment for them. Gone. And you can see the anger, the angst that they have to feel. And there's no way that process could give birth to peace. I came out of that not knowing. I didn't know whether war was a necessary evil. I still hadn't figured out. I mean, I went into the military believing that if you wanted peace, you had to prepare for a war. I hadn't figured that out, any of that out. But it was clear to me at that point that this process could not give birth to peace. And then it took me a while to understand that, to the position I am now, which I don't believe, there's no such thing as a good war. Never has been a good war, never will be a good war. There is no such thing as a just war. A just war is just war. That's all. So besides that experience, I also went down to Grenada after we attacked Grenada. I spent time in Gaza. I had some experience with war. There's a couple of things that became very clear to me over time. One is, war is not about conflict resolution. It does not resolve conflict. We know how to resolve conflict. War is not about national security. It doesn't create national security, and we know how to create national security. So I don't know what war is about, but I do know one thing. There is one thing that is true of every single war I've looked at. One consistent fact, and that is a few people got very rich or made a lot of power. And I step back and I say, now, if this is the one consistent aspect, why is it that we absolutely refuse to question whether it's the cause? So we're left with, and I'm left with, that's what war's about. And when we pay this brutal price as a nation with crushing debt, with paying with the flesh of our children by becoming hated around the world, why the hell do we do it? I grew up with the idea that freedom is not free, and that is so absolutely true. But as a soldier, I did not defend our freedoms. I defended our government. Our governments take freedoms away. Basic factor. Soldiers defend governments, governments take freedoms away. Freedoms we defend, and we have to defend them at every step of the way. Freedoms we defend by violating unjust laws, with the attorneys who defend us from violating unjust laws, by pushing the proof. When you have something to say, you go out and say it, and if they say, no, you can't say it, but freedom of speech. You know, pushing the legal structure to defend our rights of freedom of speech is just plain basic maintenance of the Bill of Rights. It's maintenance. If you say, oh, I have the right of freedom of speech, so I won't test it, that is like having a car and not changing the oil on it. You have to go out and push the system. You know, I was thinking of, for example, recently I was speaking about Alice Paul and the bitter battle they had to wrest women's suffrage away from the power structures and the men. And I was thinking about the fast, and they went on when they were imprisoned. The suffragettes said, no. In those days, criminals were expected to work for the prison system. They said, no, we are not criminals. We are political prisoners. We will not work. And they had a fast. Now, A fast to me is a First Amendment freedom of speech right. If you believe so much in it, you're willing to refuse to eat, even to the point of your personal death. You're not hurting anybody. It is a personal choice. It is a clear example of First Amendment protected freedom of rights. But they did not allow that. The government force-fed them. And I consider that a violation of the First Amendment rights. So it's an illustration of every step you have to exercise those rights, the First Amendment, the right to petition your government, demanding that your government comply with international law. If you don't get out there and use those rights and push the system, then you lose them. So that is maintenance of the system, basic maintenance of the Bill of Rights. We're starting another cycle of the election process. This is the caucus and the beginning of the election process. We need to get our voice heard. We need to get our voice heard loudly. We understand that the political system has been co-opted. We get a choice to vote between two pre-selected candidates. We need to have democracy introduced into the electoral process. So we are picking up on this wonderful Occupy movement, which has been so powerful, and trying to use some of the wonderful work they've done to begin to have the electoral process become more democratic. Have the candidates reflect our needs, not their needs. You know, we talk about politicians, and I keep asking people, you know, if you tell your representative to make decisions for you, somebody else to make decisions for you, what on earth makes you think they're going to make decisions for you, not for them? They're going to make decisions for them. So we're going to start by going to Obama's office and tell him that we need an end to empire. We need to take the defense budget, which is massive. We need to take the defense budget, cut it in half. There's no earthly reason why we should be paying as much for our defense as all the other nations put together. That's not a defense budget. That's an empire budget. Defense, a basic axiom of defense is your defense budget should be roughly the same as your next greatest enemy. The two nations that could challenge our superpower status would be Russia and China. If we cut our budget down to about the largest of those two, it would be about half. And we could still claim that we had the largest military budget in the world if we wanted to, and it would be reasonable, and we'd be paying half as much. You know, I think it would be good for the U.S. military to have the budget cut in half. One of the problems is that thing has gotten so big and the defense budget, several times Congress has asked the Government Accounting Office to go audit them. The Government Accounting Office has not come back and said, this is terrible, they're so corrupt we can't tell what, you know, it's just awful. They come back and say, it's so bad we can't even audit it. We can't even figure out what's bad. So we have this huge mammoth thing. And you know, when you think about the Defense Department, again, the defense should be, you want to pay the least amount necessary to make yourself secure, right? That's the idea, least amount. 60% of our discretionary budget goes into the Defense Department. 60%. That means the other 11 departments, the Department of Defense gets 60%, the other 11 departments, they have to fight over the scraps. It's just crazy. And it's time that we say, it's crazy. It's time to put some ration into this. And cutting the Defense Department sounds like a draconian slash and burn, I hate the Defense Department. It's not. It's just reasonable. It's just a reasonable position. The Defense Department has so much money, they're spinning off, they've got so much money, they're spinning equipment off to all the police departments. We don't want our police departments militarized. That's crazy. When I was younger, after I came back from Vietnam, we were talking about giving our police department sports jackets and neckties because we thought it was effective law enforcement. And it was effective law enforcement. This kind of riot squad and SWAT team, and I mean, when we were arrested in Virginia, they called out a squad with M16s. All we were doing was sit in the streets. We didn't have weapons. We're nonviolent. We'd taken a nonviolent oath. We'd read a nonviolent oath. We'd given them a nonviolent oath, and they came out there with M16s. So there's a sort of madness that's going through, and that's what we have to approach. And we're just going to Obama's office and say, look, it's time to have some reason. We can't afford empire, Empire is bad for us. It's bad for the world. It's only good for a very few. It is time to end empire, cut the military defense budget in half. And we're just going there to start the discussion.